Hello, fourth graders. Welcome to lesson 1.4, Round Numbers. Please pause to write the lesson number and title in your notebook. Today's lesson objective is I can round a whole number to any place. Please pause and write the lesson objective in your notebook. Alright, today we have some lesson notes. They are rules for rounding. We're going to read through them together, and then you can pause and write this in your notebook. They are underline the digit, then look next door. If it's a 5 or greater, add one more. If it's less than 5, leave it for sure. Everything after is a 0, not more. Please pause and write this in your notebook. All right, class, here we go. Let's unlock the problem. During May 2008, the Mount Rushmore National Monument in South Dakota welcomed 138,202 visitors. A website reported that about 100,000 visited the park during that month. Here's our question. Let's underline it. Was that estimate reasonable? An estimate, you should know from previous school years, is when we know a number is close to an exact number. So we want to know if the reporter said it was about 100,000, is that estimate reasonable? Let's look at the box to the right. The first thing tells us to underline what you are asked to find. Well, we did that already. We want to know what is the estimate reasonable? Okay? Now we want to circle the information we're going to use. So let's circle the numbers. So they welcomed 138,202, and we're comparing it to 100, the last word's over here, 1,000 people. All right, now it says an estimate tells you about how many or about how much. It's a close number, but not the exact number. And we can use the method of rounding to find an estimate. In this Unlock the Problem, we're going to do this one way. We always do it more than one way. So our first way is to use a number line. To round a number to its nearest 100,000, we want to find what 100,000 it is between. So we know that if we look on our number line here, our smallest number is 100,000 and our biggest number is 200,000. So our number, 138,202, is between 100,000 and 200,000. Okay, now let's get a little bit more specific. If we look at our 100,000 over here on the left, we would count by 10,000s. So this would be 110,000, this would be 120,000, this would be 130,000, 140,000. Okay, well, 138 is bigger than 130,000, but smaller than 140,000. So there's our number, 138,202. Not quite 140,000. So now we're going to look at some benchmarks, our 100,000 and our 200,000, to decide what number is it closer to. So it looks like if this is about half, that it is closer to the left side, not the right side. So it is closer to 100,000 than it is to 200,000. So we know that the reporter's estimate of about 100,000 is reasonable. We can further justify whether the reporter is reasonable by answering these two questions below. So the first one says, what number is halfway between 100,000 and 200,000? Well, when we look at our values of 1 to 10, our middle number is 5. So the middle number on our number line, which I pointed out above, was 150,000. That's halfway between 100,000 and 200,000. Okay, our next question says, how does knowing where the halfway point help you to find where 138,202 is closest to? Well, we knew that if it was more than half, we should round up. Remember our rules. If it's a 5, then we add one more. But it wasn't a 5, it was less than 5. So we know we need to round down. So the location of the number helps us tell where it is closer to our rounding numbers. Remember to pause and write down what I wrote on your page as well. Alright, let's try this another way. This time we're going to use place value. Mount Rushmore is located 5,725 feet above sea level. About how high is Mount Rushmore above sea level to the nearest 10,000 feet? Let's practice what they had us do on the first problem. Let's underline and circle the numbers that are important to us. So we're asking about how high is Mount Rushmore above sea level to the nearest 1,000 feet. So we know we're going to round to the thousands place. And let's circle our number, 5,725. All right, since we know we're going to the nearest thousands place, let's find the thousands that are close to it. So 5,725 is in the 5,000s place, so our smallest rounding would be 5,000. But it's not any more than 6,000, so our highest rounding number would be 6,000. Now before, we looked at, on its place value, where it fell on a number line. This time we're just going to look at the digit. And so our first rule was we underlined the digit. So we're looking at this 5, and then we look at the one next door. Then our rule said if it's a 5 or more, we round up. So the 7 is more than 5. We know that it's more than halfway, so we're going to round up. So we know it's closer to our 6,000 estimate than it is to our 5,000 estimate, because it's more than 5,500, which would be halfway between our two benchmarks. All right, we have some questions here to answer, number 3 and number 4. Number 3 says, what number is halfway between 70,000 and 80,000? Well, we can just think about this with 70 and 80. The thousands we can just add right back on. So halfway between 70 and 80 would be 75. So we know that 75,000 is our halfway point. Now it asks us, what is 75,000 rounded to the nearest 10,000? All right, well, let's look at our 10,000s place. The 10,000s place is the 7, and then we look at the 5. And when we look next door, if it's 5 or more, we round up for sure. So if we're going to round that number, then we're going to round it up to 80,000. Because we round to the closest 10,000s place. All right, last part of this page, we have some numbers we're going to practice on. This is our try this section. Let's practice the rules we wrote down. So, our first number is 64,999. We know what place value they want us to round to by the underline they already gave us. So in A, the underline is under the 6. So we underline the digit, it's already there. Then we look next door, so the right number next door is a 4. If it's a 5 or greater, we add one more. Is it a 5? Nope, it's not. If it's less than 5, leave it for sure. And everything else is a 0, not more. All right, so the 6 stays the same because that's the place value we're rounding to. The 4 stays the same because if it's less than 5, we leave it for sure. And everything after is a 0, not more. Let's try B. All right, B has an 8 underlined, so we underline the digit and look next door. If it's a 5 or greater, we add one more. Is it a 5? Yes, it is. So we need to round that 8, so we're going to add 8 plus 1 is 9. So it's 900,000. All right, let's try C. We're going to round to that thousands place. So we underline the digit and look next door. If it's a 5 or greater, we add one more. Now remember, the one we add is to the place we underlined. So the 3 stays the same, the 0 stays the same, but I add 1 plus 1 is 2, and everything after is a 0 for sure. Last one, we're rounding to the thousands place, and even though there's a 0 in that thousands place, we go through the same steps. Underline the digit, look next door. If it's a 5 or greater, we add one more. Is 8 greater than 5? Yes, it is. So the 1 stays the same, but 0 plus 1 is 1, and everything after is a 0, not more. Great job. Rounding can be kind of tricky, but we'll practice it more in class tomorrow. Make sure you go back to your teacher's website and complete the exit slip. See you tomorrow.